We are in Brick Lane, a very multicultural part of London, and we are with Dani Singer, who is talking about a new project, LGBT Against Islamophobia.
Hi Paolo, yes, it's Dani Singer here again, talking about LGBT Against Islamophobia, which is a new campaign which we're just launching tonight. It's already been circling around the internet for a little while, and we've had a banner which we've taken to lots of protests, but tonight marks its official launch, and from here we're going to be starting campaigning in earnest with a committee, with members, and hopefully trying to push it to be as big a campaign as possible.
But in many Islamic states, homosexuality is persecuted. Also, gay and lesbians, they also risk their lives.
Yeah, we acknowledge that, Paolo, but it's not really... We're focusing on Islam in this country, and there's a massive movement here and in other countries overseas to reform Islam, to engage in discussion about these things, and to try and progress the religion to encompass as many people as possible. And we're really fortunate in that we're working with groups like the Islamic Mosque the Inclusive Mosque Initiative, the Muslim Institute, and other supportive individuals like the councillor Oli Rahman, who's an independent councillor in Tower Hamlets, who are all really progressive Muslims who want to involve all factions of the community in practicing, and we're trying to help them by showing our solidarity as a similarly ostracised group in society at different points in history.
And you are also Jewish, so this is a much stronger multicultural effort.
It is strong, and it's strong because the way that we're seeing the Muslim community treated in Britain at the moment by the government is it brings back certain memories of the way the Jewish community have been treated classically by the Nazi government in Germany in the 30s, and they're being systematically and legislatively sort of sidelined, oppressed and turned upon, and it's all very dangerous. We see things like Prevent operating in schools, which compels teachers and national bodies to report anything they deem suspicious conversation, which is just quelling the discussion further. It's not actually going to help anybody to eliminate any threat of terrorism. It's just going to increase the fear that's already surrounding Islam, and we're really trying to oppose that as well and show people that there's a better way of engaging in that discussion, and a better way, a more effective, a more community-focused way of bringing people together to have that conversation.
This part of London is historically the cradle of the Jewish community, but now there is also a very strong Islamic community. How are they living together?
There's not really much of a Jewish community left in East London. It hasn't really been the case, well, for quite a few decades now, that the Jewish community hasn't really been felt that strongly here. I mean, I guess there's not much of a crossover between Jewish and Muslim communities in London, which is a shame, and there are pockets of, certainly as far as I know, of the Jewish community that are reaching out to the Islamic community, and similarly branches of Islam that are reaching out to the Jewish community. But in a general sense, I don't think there's much crossover, and I don't think the two communities mix very much. So that's another thing that I'd like to see happening, is involving people of different faiths coming together to oppose homophobia and Islamophobia.
Is the problem of Zionism affecting the relations between the two communities?
I think it will do on an individual level, because there'll be people from both the Muslim and the Jewish communities who will have strong views about the situation in Israel and Palestine. But there'll also be people who will come together over that issue with a shared opinion. As it is, I feel that I'm trying to put my opinion aside on this situation and focus more on the fact that what we have in this country, never mind in another country, is a community that's being systematically oppressed in a very dangerous way. The government's stance on Israel, very pro-Israel, maybe feeds into that. I'm not sure if the two are, well, I'm sure they must be implicitly linked. But it's just interesting, I think, on an individual level to meet different people and hear that not everyone thinks what you expect them to think about issues like that and other issues as well.
And about homophobia and the communities, we also have many asylum seekers, some also coming from Islamic countries, and not only, of course, who are now looking for asylum here in Britain, but often they are denied it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're seeing people of all faiths from all different countries coming here. Not just because they have been they've been threatened by their sexuality for lots of different reasons, and that is a problem as well that we're trying to work together to overcome. I mean, as I say, I'm really fortunate to be working with some brilliant organisations with this campaign, and hopefully we can come together in solidarity for refugees as well. That actually leads quite nicely onto the point of this evening, which is, as I say, the launch of LGBT Against Islamophobia, but it's also a fundraising dinner for a pink bus to Calais, which we're collecting money for at the moment, which is to support school children in the Calais refugee jungle camp to continue their education whilst the Home Office takes its time letting them in.
Geoff Dexter, Stand Up to Racism and LGBT Against Islamophobia. You are coming from Birmingham, but you are here in London to take part to this campaign. But people say that in the Islamic countries there is a lot of Islamophobia, and that the West is defending gays. How do you answer?
Well, I think if we're to look at our governments, they're real hypocrites. You know, we currently have a Tory government. They were responsible for Section 28 in the 80s. They're the ones that are preaching to people around the world, and yet they're the ones slashing our public services. They're the ones that carry out wars across the world. And actually all of our LGBT rights, here or anywhere else in the world, have been fought for by LGBT people and societies as a whole. So it's sheer hypocrisy from our governments that go round bombing the world, and what they're trying to do is divide our society as well. Our government wants to drive through austerity, and they're prepared to use racism to do it. So the role of LGBT Against Islamophobia is to say that our rights won't be used to counterpose other people's rights, because in Britain there's massive and rampant Islamophobia. Muslims are under attack, and we know what that feels like as LGBT people, many of which who bore the brunt of it when the Tories did it to us in the 80s with things like Section 28. So we want to build solidarity. We want to make sure that there's massive anti-racism campaigns, and tonight I've come all the way from Birmingham because I think it's really important to see what people are doing in London, raise money for refugees, and we'll be in Calais on the 18th of June to celebrate the solidarity that we've built up.
Do you have many gay friends who are Muslim?
I do. I have lots of friends who are LGBT or straight as well, and I think it's really important that people aren't forced into a position where they are forced to choose between their identities, which is what's happening with the Islamophobia and racism that takes place, and also how LGBT rights are characterised in Britain.